Okay, hello everyone. We are going to get started with our very last class. You'll be so excited to learn all about writing conventions, but more importantly that it is your last class and you get to move on to mathematics with Jordan. So today we're going to continue on with writing conventions. When you come in next Tuesday, we're actually going to work on some of those grammatical points that might be sticky for you. And I'm also going to give you some more cheat sheets to help you study and decode some of those difficult texts. So let's get started. So to review, a proposition is the main idea of a claim or a text. Support means the details, whether it's in facts, statistics, or actual word details. Focus, do the details support the claim? A logical sequence where you have the introduction, the body, and the conclusion. Transition words for addition, time, examples, cause and effect, comparison, contrast, clarification, and conclusion. Precision, meaning to choose your words carefully, and concision, meaning does the text hold the reader's attention. Style is the way that a writer chooses his or her words. Tone is the writer's attitude, and syntax is the writer's sentence structure. And of course, you want to avoid run-on and fragmented sentences. So looking at sentence formation specifically, you have a simple sentence, which is called an independent clause. A compound sentence has two independent clauses. A complex sentence is an independent clause and a subordinate clause put together. And a compound complex sentence is two or more independent clauses and one or more subordinate clauses. And so if we break this down, a simple independent clause would be, I love music. A compound sentence are two independent clauses put together. I love music and I love to listen to it often. A complex sentence is an independent sentence and a subordinate clause. I love to listen to music after doing my homework. I love to listen to music after doing homework. After doing homework is the subordinate clause. A compound complex sentence is the one that you see here in brackets. I love music and I love to listen to it often after doing my homework. A parallel structure, this is when a sentence lists several items. Each item should be similar grammatically. So let's take a look at the correct way to write something with parallel structure, a sentence with parallel structure. We went sailing, comma, surfing, comma, and to the skateboard park over the summer. Sorry, that is the incorrect statement. We should try that one again. Here's the incorrect statement. We went sailing, comma, surfing, comma, and to the skateboard park over the summer. That is incorrect. The correct way to write it is we went sailing, comma, surfing, comma, and skateboarding over the summer. So you might be saying, Lisa, okay, I don't understand what the difference is. what's happening here is that you essentially have sailing as an action word, surfing as an action word, and then skateboard park is not an action word, it's a place. And so that's why it's incorrect. So you need to say, to make it correct, the parallel structure, sailing, surfing, and skateboarding, where all three in the list are action words, and therefore that makes the parallel structure correct. Modifier placement. These are adjectives and adverbs, and they are called modifiers. So adjectives modify a noun. The brown cow. Brown describes the cow, so it's an adjective. Adverbs modify a verb. She ran quickly. Quickly describes the running. So when we're talking about a modifier means it changes or adds to the noun or the verb. So adjectives add or change, right? The brown cow versus the white cow versus the spotted cow, so that it adds more description, more distinction. It modifies the noun. Same thing happens with adverbs. She ran quickly. She ran slowly. It describes the running. A dangling modifier. So this is a modifier without a word to change. So here's an example. Absent-minded forgot to buy salt at the grocery store. So absent-minded, who's absent-minded? What does absent-minded describe? Does it describe forgot? Does it describe the salt? Does it describe the grocery store? There's something critically missing from that sentence, and that's your noun, your person, your pronoun. If you said absent-minded, I forgot to buy salt at the grocery store, absent-minded would be describing I or me, the person in the sentence. So that's called a dangling modifier, where something's missing. There's no word to modify. A squinting modifier is a modifier that is unclear because it could be a modifier of either the word that comes before it or the word that comes after it. So here's an example. Eating your food quickly causes stomach aches. So eating your food quickly causes stomach aches. So what causes the stomach aches? The food or the fact that you're eating it quickly? It's unclear whether it's the food or quickly that's causing your stomach aches. And so that's what they call a squinting modifier. Verb tense. This indicates when something is happening, whether it's in the present, the past, or the future. So for example, jump, I jumped, I will jump, okay? Present, past, and future. The mood indicates attitude. So both of these are very important. The indicative states facts and asks questions. Are you going to the gym? The subjunctive expresses a fictional condition. I would go to the gym if I were you. Imperative is like a command. Go to the gym, or you will go to the gym. You're making a command on somebody. That's the imperative. Conditional depends on a circumstance. I will go to the gym if you come with me. Okay, so you can see the conditional relationship. I'll only go if you come with me. So indicative is either stating a fact or asking a question. Are you going to the gym? So indicative has question mark. Subjunctive means I would go if I were you. It's kind of like you're making a conditional statement, like a suggestion. Imperative is a command, and conditional depends on something else happening or a different circumstance. I'm not sure if they formally teach this to you in writing at the high school level. I certainly know they do in French language. So if you're thinking back to your grade 9, grade 10 French classes, I am sure that you talked about l'indicatif, subjonctif, conditionnel, and all of those sorts of things. These words should be familiar to you. They mean the exact same thing. A pronoun, person, and number. So a pronoun replaces a specific noun or sometimes another pronoun. So for example, singular pronouns, I, me, my, mine, you, he, she, and so on. You can read it yourself. Plural pronouns, us, they, ours, them, their, we, and those. Oftentimes in writing, you're asked to speak in first person, second person, third person, depending on what it is that you're writing. If you're asked to speak in the first person, all of your sentences are going to or should start with I. I'm going home. I live in LaSalle. I work at A21 Academy. Second person is the person being addressed. You are a great friend. You are great baseball players. You are a fantastic singer. You are an awesome football player. And so that's writing in the second person. When you're writing in the third person, you're describing other people or the person being spoken about. He's going to play for the Toronto Maple Leafs, or he is going to play for Cleveland Indians. So it's talking about essentially another person. So knowing first person, second person, third person, first person is always going to be I. Second person is always going to be you. And third person is she, he. Conventions of usage. So sentences that fail to confirm or to conform is probably what it should say, to the conventions of usage need to be revised. I guess I should revise that sentence. Such sentences may use pronouns or possessive determiners incorrectly. So pronoun clarity. Nouns and or pronouns replaced are called antecedents. Certain antecedents require particular pronouns. So for example, Jennifer is the antecedent. The pronoun that you're going to use for her is she or her. Jennifer and David are the antecedents. The pronoun you would use would be they or them. Jennifer and me, being the antecedent, the pronoun you would use is us. Jennifer and I, we is the pronoun. Table, it, and tables, them or those. So ideas need to be expressed carefully so that the pronouns clearly refer to the antecedents. And we see a lot of students get that mixed up, and you've probably seen it written on your some of your writing assignments in English, where the teacher will circle words like she, they, them, those, and ask, who are you referring to? Or what is this referring to? Because you make confusion going between when you're talking about different things throughout the course of a paragraph, and it becomes confusing when you don't have your pronoun matching directly with your antecedent. The possessive determiners. So there are 13 pronouns that are used to show possession. Some of them do not need to modify anything. These are considered to be strong pronouns. So for example, mine, yours, ours, theirs, and hers. That is mine. That's a strong pronoun. There's no mixing it up. That's mine. There are 8 other pronouns that are considered to be weak because the things they modify must be mentioned in order to determine the possessive determiner. So for example, my. In the first person, this is my bed. You can't just say this is my, or this is I bed. No, this is my bed. Your is the second person singular and plural. What is your name? So you wouldn't say what is you name. It is what is your name. But you have to match your with name. And you have to match my with bed, because my and your are considered to be weaker pronouns. Our is also considered to be a weaker pronoun. Our house is just down the road. Their shoes are in the hall. Its handle is broken. Whose sandwich is this? Her name is Lisa. His name is Jordan. So if you look here in these sentences, and it seems kind of silly, but it makes sense. You can't just have our without house. You can't just have their without shoes, or some other object to qualify where this belongs, where the word there belongs, where the word our belongs. Otherwise, the sentence doesn't make sense. Our is just down the road, or ours is just down the road. Well, your what is just down the road? You have to have the word house there, otherwise it's unclear what you're talking about. Theirs are in the hall. Their what is in the hall? Their shoes are in the hall. Their pants are in the hall. Their coats are in the hall. What's in the hall? You need to have that second word in order to have this make sense. Agreements. Some words really depend on others. So an agreement is when the use of a word depends on the word or words to which it relates. So grammatically correct writing uses the right pronouns to agree with the particular antecedents they modify, and the right verbs to agree with the particular nouns they modify. This should also sound familiar to you, because just like in the French language, where you had to make sure if you had feminine words, then you changed the adjectives to feminine or masculine. Same thing with the agreements that happen on verbs. The same thing also happens in English language. Pronoun antecedent agreement. The antecedent is the noun or the pronoun to which a noun refers. The antecedent and its referring pronoun need to agree. So let's take a look at the example. Tim and Jamal ate his lunch in the park. This is incorrect. Tim and Jamal ate his lunch in the park. Well, they didn't. First of all, whose lunch? Tim or Jamal? And why are they both eating his lunch? So the correct answer would be Tim and Jamal ate their lunch in the park. So this is where they have the agreements, right? Or you might want to say they ate their lunch in the park. The agreement is here. Because you have more than one person, it no longer is his. That's where the error is. It becomes their, because their represents more than one person. Another example, Marietta is a girl who knows where he's going in life. Okay, well, there's a problem. Marietta is a girl who knows where she is going in life. So you have to be careful, because if you write he, and Marietta is the proper noun, it doesn't match. So Marietta being a girl, you have to have she as the pronoun there. Subject-verb agreement. Complete sentences contain at least one subject and one verb. The number of its subject and the verb must be in agreement. A singular verb which ends with the letter S describes the action of a singular noun. The tree grows. So I want you to think about this for a second. A singular verb which ends with the letter S describes the action of a singular noun. You've been taught, for the most part, that when something ends with an S, it means more than one, but not in this case, not when it comes to the verb. So for example, the tree, there's only one tree, grows, and it has an S at the end. Okay, sorry about that. We're going to keep going here. Students came in and we need to go back. So we were talking about complete sentences containing at least one subject and one verb. Okay, so a complete sentence contains at least one subject and one verb. The number of its subject and the verb must be in agreement. A singular verb, which ends with the letter S, describes the action of a singular noun. So this is where we stopped. The tree grows. There's only one tree, yet it grows and it has an S at the end. Subject-verb agreement is pretty straightforward, except in compound sentences. Compound subjects with conjunction and use of plural verbs. So the example here, the tree and the grass grow. So I want you to be careful. You've got now two different things happening. You've got the tree and the grass, so there's more than one, but it's not the tree and the grass grows. It's the tree and the grass grow, and if it's singular, then you add the S. So it's kind of like there's lots of different exceptions to the rule in English, and this is just one of those things that you have to kind of memorize. Compound subjects with conjunctions or nor use singular verbs. So neither the tree nor the grass grows. So you're going to say, okay, well, wait a minute. Didn't you just tell me that the tree and the grass grow with no S? Yes, I did. But as soon as I add the word or nor, it changes back to the singular, which has the S. So neither the tree nor the grass grows. And that's the proper way to say that. The noun agreement. When a sentence uses a noun to describe its subject, the subject noun and the modifying noun need to agree in terms of number and gender. So for example, Gil grew from a small boy into a man. Gil, boy, man. All nouns are in agreement. Okay? The woman works as a teacher. Woman and teacher are both singular, and therefore they are in agreement. So everything has to be equal to each other. We can't say the woman works as a teacher, because women would represent more than one person and teacher is only one. Therefore, it won't work. They're not in agreement. So those are the kind of things that you want to make sure are in alignment when you're looking to make those grammatical corrections that they're going to ask you to make on your SAT. Frequently confused words. Words that sound the same, but have different meanings, and spellings can be easily confused. The first example that comes to my mind is the word to. T-O, T-W-O, and T-O-O. So T-O, I go to the store. T-W-O, as in the number, I drank 2 cans of pop this afternoon. And T-O-O, I ate too much turkey for dinner. So that one adds emphasis. The T-O-O is to add emphasis. I believe the proper term for those words that sound the same but have different meanings and spellings are also called homonyms. And so you have to be careful because you don't want to get confused in terms of their meaning on the SAT. So let's take a look at this. These are some frequently mixed up words. So this word, accept. Accept means to agree to do something, or you're able to take something, you're agreeing to it. What people confuse it with is accept with the EX. EX means apart from. I'll do just about anything except wash toilets. So that would be an example of where I would use this word. Over here, I accept this job because it is an amazing opportunity to teach young people. So accept meaning I agree to do it. The next one is advice versus advise. And they are different. When you give advice, you're giving a recommendation or you're making a recommendation. And to advise is to recommend or like to give instruction to. I'm advising you at this point that you really need to study your language skills for SAT. So that's advise. Some advice. Before you write your SAT, you want to make sure that you don't cram. You get a good night's sleep. When you get up in the morning, you have a good breakfast with lots of carbohydrate, lots of protein to sustain you for 3 hours so that you're not hungry when you're writing your test. So that's advice that I've given to you. So advice is kind of more strongly like a directive, and advice is just a recommendation or a suggestion. Affect means to change. Effect is a result. Brake, that's a mechanism for stopping, like something that you find in your car or on your bike. And this kind of brake is like I give you a 10-minute break to grab a snack at Tim Hortons, for example, halfway through SAT practice. Coarse with O-A-R-S-E means rough, like sandpaper. Course with a U is like what you're doing, your SAT course. It's an educational class. Draw means to illustrate. Drawer, even I screwed that one up. Draw, and drawer. Draw is to illustrate, and drawer is a storage compartment. Elicit with an E is to bring forth. So I want to elicit as much information as I possibly can from you so that you're doing your very best learning and I understand where you're coming from and what your strengths and weaknesses are. Illicit means illegal. So just like we talked before in another video, at this point in time, drugs are bad, friends. Drugs are bad. They are illicit. They are illegal, and you are not allowed to do them. So says A21 Academy, just saying. Okay, moving on. Fourth, it's a number 4 in a sequence, and then fourth without the U means to bring forward. Illusion is a visual trick. Allusion is a reference to something. And then you have loose, meaning not secure, and then lose, meaning to misplace or drop. Pole, a long cylinder or of metal or wood. And then you've got poll, which is like a voting station, like a sampling, where you're responding to a question. You're taking a poll to see how many people prefer chocolate chill at Tim Hortons versus a Cruller donut. I don't know, I'm making this stuff up on the fly, but you get the idea. It's a sampling. Principal with an AL, that would be me, the person that runs the school. A principal with an LE is like a rule, a code, a value. It's something that it's kind of like the foundation on which you build maybe a company or a code of ethics that you live by. Those are principles. I'm going to stop right here recording for just 1 minute because I'm being interrupted. 1 second. Okay, here we go again. And stationary, right here, ARY means to be still. Stationary with ERY means writing paper. There and there, THEIR, is a possessive form of they. There, THERE, is a place. It's referring to a place. Your, the possessive form of you, and your, you, apostrophe RE, is actually a contraction of you and are. You're a beautiful, handsome little girl. No, I guess they're not handsome. You're a beautiful, handsome little boy. You are, for your. So a logical comparison is a comparison between two things that need to follow logic. So clarity, precisely using words that do not result in an unambiguous comparison. We scored fewer points than the other team. We scored fewer points than the other team earned. So which one of these two sentences would you say provides more clarity? We scored fewer points than the other team, or we scored fewer points than the other team earned? Completeness. Both things compared are included in the sentence. That brand of cereal is better. That brand of cereal is better than the other. So again, you're looking for a logical comparison that provides clarity and completeness. And lastly, consistency. Two things being compared share some similar quality. So the van traveled farther than the pickup truck, or the van traveled farther than the pickup truck did. So again, it has to be clear, has to be precise, and it has to be consistent. Conventional expressions. So these are the English language expressions that for whatever reason, maybe we mumble, maybe it just turns into slang, maybe we're not hearing it correctly. It's often said incorrectly, and then when you see it in print, you don't recognize it for what it is. So the expression chalk it up to. I'd like to chalk it up to just a simple spreadsheet error. Well, that's not really the expression. That's an incorrect expression. Chalk it up is literally the word chalk that you would find on the writing, like to write on a chalkboard. chalk it up to. See this lots in writing? Could have. I could have went out last night, but unfortunately I had to teach an SAT class. Well, it's not could have. The expression correctly stated is could have. I could have went out with friends last night, but I had to teach an SAT course. This one's kind of funny. I'm going to extract revenge. Well, you can do that. It might be quite painful if you're going to extract something. You're not extracting revenge, you're exacting revenge. To exact revenge means that you are going to take action on somebody or avenge somebody. For all intensive purposes. Okay, we don't have intensive purposes. The purposes are not intense, although this is what it sounds like when people use that expression. The correct expression is for all intents, like the word intention, for all intents and purposes. Hone in, nope. And I hear this one all the time. I'm going to hone in on what they're saying. It's not hone in, it's home in. I'm going to home in on what they are saying. Incorrect expression, I could care less. Well, there's a problem with that. If you could care less, that means there's actually more of care of less that you could do. So the actual expression is I couldn't care less, right? But you hear people all the time say I could care less. No, I couldn't care less is the proper expression. In parenthesis, no. The actual expression is in parentheses. It's an old adage. Adage already means old, so it's redundant to use the word old adage. It's kind of like saying it's an old. So the correct expression is it's an adage. Nip it in the butt. There's no nipping in the butt. The correct expression is nip it in the bud. Okay, and the references actually has something to do with how you take care of what you're doing in the garden, nipping it in the bud. It's at the base of the flower where it meets its stem, which in essence means getting to the bottom of it. But you also hear this a lot is nip it in the butt. So we're not nipping butts, we're nipping it in the bud. On accident, we don't do anything on accident. We do things by accident. One and the same is not correct. It's one and the same. Should have, could have, would have, any of those are all incorrect expressions. It should actually say should have, would have, could have is the proper expression. This one, I love this. A statute of limitations. So I actually have a stone structure that represents limitations. No, that's not the correct expression. The correct expression is a statute of limitations. It's a rule, it's a regulation, a statute of limitations. Take for granted. No, granite is something that you put down in your kitchen as a countertop. So you don't take anybody for stone or for a piece of rock that you put in your kitchen. Take for granted is the correct expression. To say something tongue and cheek, no, it's tongue in cheek, meaning that you're being sarcastic. But the correct expression is tongue in cheek. Conventions of punctuation. So at the end of the sentence, you have four choices. You have a period, which you would use as a declarative or an imperative statement. An exclamation point expresses excitement, warning, danger, passion. A question mark obviously ends a question. And then you have quotation marks or closing quotations, which indicates that someone is speaking. Within the sentence, you have different forms of punctuation. The first one is called a colon, and it separates items in a series. It separates quotes, or it indicates things from independent clauses. For example, I have 3 things in my pocket, colon, my keys, comma, my wallet, comma, and my glasses. Okay, so there's a list or an item or a series of things. A semicolon, which is the dot and the comma, which join 2 or more independent clauses and separate items in a list if those items contain commas. So, the cat is in the kitchen, semicolon, the dog is in the den, period. Now, remember from yesterday when we spoke, this semicolon could easily just be removed and replaced by a period, but in this case, we're using it as an example for the use of semicolons, and this is a correct sentence structure. So the cat is in the kitchen, semicolon, the dog is in the den, period. On our trip to Europe, comma, we will be visiting London, England, semicolon, Paris, France, semicolon, and Rome, Italy. So I want to point out something here, the difference between a colon and a semicolon as it pertains to a list. When you're using for your list or looking at your list, as long as it doesn't have a comma that separates the actual item. So my keys, for example, there's not a comma that exists between my and keys. However, London, England is one unit together that's separated by a comma. So when you're talking about London, England, you must use a semicolon because then it goes on to Paris, France, which is together and separated by a comma, then semicolon, and Rome, Italy, Rome, Italy. So you have to look at this as one list item, the second list item, and the third list item. But the items in this list, 1, 2, and 3, the words are separated by commas. So it makes no sense in grammatical structure to have a comma here, here, to separate London, England from Paris, France, and Rome, Italy. It has to be done by a semicolon. When you're looking up here at my pocket, my keys, my wallet, and my glasses, there's no commas in here that separate my keys, that separate my wallet, and that separate my glasses. So you're using commas here to separate your list. So I hope that's clear for you, that you can see that. As long as you don't have a unit that is separated by a comma, then you're just going to use straight commas when you're doing your list. The minute you see the unit that has a comma that separates it and it's in a continuous list like this, you know that it has to be separated by the semicolon. Okay? They will, I'm telling you this, you need to study this piece right here. They will test you on colons and semicolons and commas for sure. So, M dash, which sets off extra detail in a sentence. So for example, after moving the boxes of books M dash, all 30 of them, M dash, I need a good rest. So the use of M dashes is really to make emphasis, and it's part of stylistic writing. Not all authors use this. Sometimes they use parentheses instead of the dash, but they work essentially in the same way. So after moving moving the boxes of books, all 30 of them, I needed a good rest. So all 30 of them is where they're placing the emphasis, and they're using the M dash to draw attention to that emphasis point. Possessive nouns and pronouns. So a possessive noun requires an apostrophe, and the apostrophe is placed before the S at the end of a singular noun or a noun with an irregular plural form. Okay, so for example, the boy's coat is in his bedroom. So the boy, there's only one boy, and it's his coat that's in the bedroom. This apostrophe S shows that the coat belongs to the boy. So the boy's coat is in his bedroom. So there's only one boy with one coat, and the coat belongs to the boy. An irregular plural form in the noun, for example, men. Men meaning many mans or many boys. But the word men in and of itself is irregular because it's not mans, M-A-N-S. So the men's coats are in the closet. In order to show possession, the coats belong to this group of men, you have to use the apostrophe S because it is an irregular plural form. So coats and the men, the coats belong to the men, and you use apostrophe S to show that they belong to them. The apostrophe is placed after the S at the end of a regular plural noun. So I'll say that again. The apostrophe is placed after the S at the end of a regular plural noun. So for example, the students' coats are in the closet. So you have a bunch of students, and there's coats, and the coats belong to the students. So because there's more than one student, the apostrophe goes after the S. Just by comparison, if it was singular, it would say the student, apostrophe S, coat is in the closet. So the student's coat is in the closet. That would be what it is if it was singular. In this case, it's talking about a bunch of students. So the apostrophe comes after the S. So let's take a look at incorrect positioning of the apostrophe. His desk is next to mine's. Nope. The correct way to say this is his desk is next to mine. So you don't need apostrophes to show possession in this particular instance. His desk is next to mine. It's crystal clear. Its tires are flat. This is actually a contraction of it is. So when you say its tires are flat and you have an it apostrophe S, you're actually saying it is tires are flat, which is obviously wrong. Its tires are flat is correct with no apostrophe. Those cups are theirs. There's no need for this apostrophe S. Those cups are theirs, no apostrophe. Whose book is this? This is a common mistake that we see all the time in student writing. Again, this is a contraction of who is. So you're actually saying here, whose book is this? So that's not what is meant to be said. Whose book is this is the correct way of asking that question. However, there are some exceptions. Of course, there's always exceptions because the English language is probably the most difficult language in the entire world to learn, and has many exceptions to the rules. So here are the exceptions. Anybody's, anyone's, everybody's, everyone's, no one's, and nobody's. All of those require an apostrophe S. Items in a series. So commas usually separate the items in a series. So for example, science fiction films, comma, westerns, and comma, romantic comedies are 3 movie genres. However, if a series follows an independent clause, then a colon is needed. I really enjoy 3 particular movie genres: colon, science fiction films, comma, westerns, comma, and romantic comedies. In a series that contain commas, then you need semicolons to separate them. I really enjoy 3 particular movie genres: colon, science fiction films, comma, which deal with outer space and the future, semicolon, westerns, comma, which are set in the American frontier, semicolon, and romantic comedies, comma, which find humor in romantic relationships. So I hope you can see the difference between the 2 sentences. Wherever they're adding, just like the one example where they did with London, England, Paris, France, and those, it's separated by a comma. When they're talking about science fiction films, they've added a comma in here to provide more detail about what the science fiction film is all about. As soon as they do that, then you have to put that semicolon in there to continue on with your list, because they went and added the comma in there. If it's just straight up, where there's no additional information and it's not separated by a comma, then that's where you just continue on with a regular comma. So science fiction films, comma, westerns, comma, and romantic comedies. So there's no further detail or justification given there. Non-restrictive and parenthetical elements. So parentheses, em dashes, and commas are essentially your non-restrictive and parenthetical elements. I love all these big fancy words. Parentheses separate details that are fairly unnecessary to the sentence. So for example, this book, a New York Times bestseller, is not very interesting. So really what they're trying to say is the parentheses, you're adding detail to give the reader more information, but is it a necessary thing to put in there? No. This book is not very interesting, just the same as this video is not very interesting. But you might be interested to know that this video, a New York Times bestseller, is not very interesting. So a New York Times bestseller, yes, it's in parentheses. Yes, it adds detail. Is it necessary to the sentence? No. Em dashes separate a part of the sentence that is of emphasis or importance, and we've looked at that already. For example, this book, dash, an alleged thriller that is full of talk and precious little action, is not very interesting. So they really want you to take a look at this middle piece where they're giving some pretty strong language and emphasis about the quality of the book. So it's an alleged thriller that's full of talk and precious little action. So it's all talk, no action, and it's an alleged thriller. It's not very interesting. So the emphasis is really put on this middle piece, and therefore they separate it by the dashes. Commas separate details important to the sentence. Okay, so this book, which McCormick Jones wrote, is not very interesting. The fact that they mention the writer's name could be of significant detail to you, especially when you're reading a passage. So let's go back and take a look at this. Parentheses adds detail or emphasis, but it's not necessary. An M dash adds detail or emphasis of great importance. Okay, they really want you to pay attention to that middle section. And comma separates a detail that is important to the sentence, but it's not really emphasizing anything. It's just a detail that's important. So that's essentially how you can distinguish when you're going to use parentheses, when you want to use a dash, and when you're just going to use a comma to separate details in sentences. Unnecessary punctuation. So apostrophes used in non-possessive plurals. So the windows face north. No, the correct answer is the windows face north. So you're talking about a group of windows facing north, but there's no possession there. The windows don't own the north. And so that's where the mistake is. This is showing possession like as if it owns the face of the north. Commas used to separate dependent clauses in complex and compound complex sentences. So here's something that's incorrect. I read the newspaper, comma, before reading the magazine. There's no need for a comma to be there. Okay, it doesn't need to be separated. Your conjunction is already there that connects the two sentences. So I read the newspaper before reading the magazine. Exclamation points repeated for extra emphasis. Please don't do this. We do this in texting, and we do this on Facebook, and we do this on Instagram, but it really doesn't have a place in writing, in any kind of formal writing. So incorrect. I miss you so much! Exclamation, exclamation, exclamation. No, the correct form is I miss you so much! Exclamation mark. One is sufficient. And quotation marks used to emphasize words really should also not be done. Now the interesting thing is that in marketing, advertising, and in some forms of writing that you will see via social media, you will see that writers or the authors or the marketers who are advertising to you will emphasize particular words. They'll either put quotation marks around the word, or they'll italicize the word, but in formal writing, this is actually incorrect. So that job was difficult. And here they put quotation marks around it when really it's not necessary. The correct way to write it is that that job was difficult. Okay, that's a lot of grammar. And so that's your last video. What we are going to do is we are going to have some grammar activities for you to do, and possibly a small test next week to see where you're at. Please, I want you to practice annotating, and I'm going to give you some cheat sheets as well, and probably some activities for you to do. But I do want you to practice annotating. I want you to practice your graphing. That's important. Picking apart all the different things that, the text and the tone and persuasion and comparisons. Try and get through some of those videos, as many as humanly possible. so that you can be well prepared for your test. The more you listen, the more you read, the more vocabulary you're going to pick up, the better you are going to do. This will take more of your time and preparation in order to be successful on your SAT. Next week will be your last week with me until you get to the end of the course, where we will see each other again for the big test. So I will see you next week, and in the meantime, we'll get everything posted for you, and you can dig into some of that work. I'll see you next Tuesday.